Hey, it's Callum from Integral Lifestyle Design. Today I want to talk to you about the importance of setting boundaries. This is really important, right? In every area of your life. This is important in your professional life, in your social life, in your dating life, just in your day-to-day. And we're going to talk about a couple of things. First, we're going to talk about frame. After frame, we're going to talk about essentially how to use your frame to set expectations for the people in your life. Because expectations are important. You need to have them. If you don't have them, everyone in your life is just going to walk over you. Essentially, you train people how they can treat you. And that's really important. So if someone treats you poorly and you are nice to them and you are good, you treat them well, that's not going to help you in any way, shape, or form in any area of your life. If someone bullies you and you ignore it, not good. If you have a girl that's sort of trained it to manipulate you, not good. If your employer's being a complete dickhead to you, not good, right? You've got to find that sweet spot where you can set a boundary and you can basically have a code that you will accept and you won't accept certain behavior from different people. So first we're going to talk about frame. I think frame is something everyone should be aware of. I think a lot of people are subconsciously, but they haven't really got it in their conscious mind. Frame is like, I guess, what spiritual people would call your aura, or what's the sort of vibrational feeling people get when they're around you, right? How do you sit in a space? How do you hold your own energy? That's your frame. So if you're a powerful person, if you're making, say you're the CEO of a company, your frame has to be very strong because you need to make sure that company runs. You need to manage, potentially hundreds of people. You might need to fire people, you need to hire people, you need to collaborate with other businesses, you need to market, so on. So your job is really important. You need to have a strong frame. If you're, say, the father of a household, you need to have a strong frame for your kids. If your kids can just do whatever they want and they can walk over you and they can just persuade you to do anything, the typical kids screaming at their mum at the shops to buy him a lolly or something, and the mum eventually gives in and does it just so the kid stops screaming, that's terrible frame control, because then the kid knows that if he screams and carries on, he's going to get what he wants. And at never at any point should you give someone what they want just because they're screaming and carrying on and being immature about it. So I'll give you a really good example, because I've talked to this many times. So one of the things I do is I'm a teacher, and frame control as a teacher is essentially important. They don't call it that, they call it classroom management. But a big part of classroom management that they didn't teach us at university is frame control. Frame control basically means you have a role being the teacher, the kids have a role being the kids. So primarily your job is to teach them. There's other things like to make sure they're safe, to make sure they're socially comfortable, so on and so on. But your primary training is to teach them, to put information in their heads, have them remember it, and have them use it, that they can now reach it and apply it and use it to solve problems and use it to do different things. So that's frame control as a teacher. What I do in a school, because I teach at many different schools, when I'm at a school and I have a new group of kids in front of me, and this works with hard classes, is I establish a frame. And the frame I come in with is very strong. I come in as like a very strict teacher. So I'll come in and basically tell the kids that I'm all about respect. It's like, I'm going to respect you, you're going to respect me, we're going to respect each other. And then I'll give some examples of what that is. So it might be like not talking over other people. If we're having a group discussion and someone's talking, we let them talk, we don't talk over them. Just basic things like that, right? But I established that frame that I'm strict and that I really value respect, right? What I do then, if a kid, because when you go to a new class, they're always going to test you, because everyone had a teacher you could just walk over, right? Everyone's had that experience because everyone's been to school. If you haven't, maybe 1% of people haven't. But most of you would know what I mean. There's always that one teacher you can walk over that just lets you do whatever, right? So I'd establish this frame. Once a kid does the wrong thing, or they do something that I don't like or that they shouldn't be doing, I essentially tell them, okay, don't do that. If they do it again, I say, okay, don't do that, or this will happen. So for example, say there's a kid not doing his work, or he's like throwing a ball around the room or whatever he's doing. I say, okay, John, if you throw that ball around the room again, you're gonna miss 5 minutes of your lunch. Then if he does, he misses 5 minutes of his lunch. Where I see a lot of teachers go wrong, and a lot of parents go wrong, and a lot of adults go wrong, is they give you an ultimatum. They say, if you don't do this, this will happen. So if you throw the ball, you're going to stay in at lunch. Kid will throw the ball, and half the teachers, half the parents, whoever, they won't enforce that consequence. They won't have the kid stay at lunch. Or for example, if you're in a relationship and you say to your partner, if you ever cheated on me, I'd leave you, right? That's your frame. You want to be in a monogamous relationship. You say, okay, if you ever cheated on me, I'd leave you. If the person never cheated and you didn't leave, that trains them to think it's okay. The same as that little kid throwing the ball. If he throws the ball and you do nothing about it, then he now knows that basically you're full of crap and that that's okay, that he can get away with it. You never want to be in this position. That's called having a weak frame. And if you don't have a weak frame, basically you're going to lose respect. People aren't going to really respect you as much. People aren't going to value you as much. People aren't going to take your word. Your word's not going to mean as much. I think as a man, the most powerful thing you have is your word and your attention. They're both very powerful things. So essentially that's frame control. That's my sort of teacher example. But anyone who's in a position of authority, they need to have frame. If you have kids and you basically threaten a consequence, again, like the mum, say the mum's going through and there's a kid and he's screaming for lollies, and the mum says, I'm not giving you lollies. I'm not getting you lollies. We're going to go home. We're having dinner in an hour. Let's say that. Kid's screaming, oh, lollies, oh, lollies. The mum says, listen, if you keep doing that, you're going to go home and you're going to go in your room. No technology. You're going to be in your room for an hour or the rest of the night or whatever it is. If the mum says that and the kid continues to scream and the mum doesn't follow through, then the kid's going to know that she's full of crap, right? That's basically how this works. So it's important that you have a very strong frame. It's important that you are able to set an expectation or a boundary or whatever it is, and that if someone crosses it, that you're able to handle it, that you're able to address it, and if there's any consequences, you're able to deliver those consequences. That's sort of the fundamental of this. So if you have a boundary, it doesn't matter what it is, it might be different with different people. Say if you've got a girlfriend and you don't like the fact that, say she wants to start an OnlyFans, some extreme example, right? You say, okay, I've got a boundary about that. I don't really want you showing off your body to thousands of other men. So I would rather you don't do that. If you do it, that's fine. It's your choice, but we're not going to be in a serious relationship if that's how you want to handle it, if that's how you want to handle your life. That's a boundary. Now, that's up to the other person if they cross it or not, but you've set the boundary. It's important, though, if they do cross it, that you deal with it. Or the equivalent for a girl could be, she's like, okay, I want to be in a relationship with you, but I don't want you to sleep with any other women. If you do sleep with another girl, it's your choice, it's your life. I'll be very annoyed and disappointed in you, but if you do it, I'm going to leave. That's going to be the end of this relationship. Then if the guy cheats, basically if the girl doesn't leave, then the guy learns that that's okay. Or if anyone's physically abusive in a relationship, your boundary is, say someone hits you, your boundary is never do that again or I'm going to leave. If someone hits you again, you don't leave. You've trained them that it's okay. In any area of life. If you've got a boss and he treats you like absolute crap, and you say to your boss, and this might be very difficult financially, but you say to your boss, look, if you treat me like this, I know you're ahead of me, whatever, in the company, but if you treat me like this, I'm going to leave. I'm going to have to find another job because I'm not going to tolerate this. If the boss, sometimes that'll stop it. If it doesn't and you don't leave, again, the same thing happens. You have trained that person that they can treat you a certain way and get away with it. So boundaries are so important, and having strong boundaries. If you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. If you don't, basically people lose respect for you. Because again, as a man, your word is one of the most powerful things. And if you're known as a guy who's a liar, basically, if you're known as a guy who said he's going to do stuff and can't do it, if he says he's going to deliver something and doesn't, then especially other men, other masculine beings, they're going to lose all respect for that person. So yeah, it's very important to have boundaries. It's very important that way. And you also need to respect other people's boundaries. If you're going to overstep someone else's boundaries, They have the same license to deliver whatever consequence as you would if they overstepped your boundaries. So I'm very clear and very honest about it. Yeah, like for example, I've got a friend who would want to live with me, but at the same time he wants to live with me, but he's not in like the best financial situation and stuff like that. So basically what I've said to him is, like I love you, we're good friends and everything, but I wouldn't personally want to live with you because I haven't seen a track record of you being able to handle your finances in a good enough way to where I could trust you. And that's a very real conversation. That's a very real topic. But that's having a boundary. You could easily go, oh, no, I don't really want to do whatever it is. I don't really want to be in a relationship with this person. I don't really want to work with this person. I don't really want to hang out with this person. Say someone rings you up and they want to hang out and you don't want to hang out. You need to have a boundary to be like, no, today I need to have time for myself. I've set this expectation. I want to spend time by myself or with this person or whatever. And for the most part, you just be honest about it. Be like, yeah, I love you, but I want to go and do this. Or if you don't want to be around somebody in your life, say if you're dating someone and you don't want to date them anymore for whatever reason, or you've got a friend and they're no longer really clicking with you, then you also need to have that boundary for who you let into your life. So if you're on the self-improvement journey and you've got a friend who's like a drug addict and he's watching porn and he's playing video games and he's abusive and all this stuff, let's just pile on a bunch of negative things. Essentially, what's going to happen long term if you let that person stay in your life and they don't want to change and they aren't changing, they're just going down some toxic path, that's going to have a negative impact on you. And there's going to be a level, or there's going to be a point where you no longer are going to want to accept that. So you need to have boundaries for your relationships, for your friendships, for your intimate relationships, for where you work, the values of where you work, so on and so on. And that can be really difficult. For example, someone wants intimacy, they want to have sex or whatever. They might get with the first girl who will do that, who's constantly overstepping their boundaries, pushing them around, shoving them, manipulating them, whatever. But they're okay with it because they're getting a little bit of sex. Or you're lonely, you want friends, but your friends are sort of like toxic people. They're they put you down in public and do all this other toxic behavior. But because you're lonely and maybe you're anxious or whatever, you tolerate it. That behavior is going to lead to a miserable existence, I promise. So you need to have boundaries. Really important. Your word as a man is literally one of the most powerful things you have got. And if your word can't be taken seriously, then it has very little power. So if you got anything out of this video, give it a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep throwing out these crazy videos and all sorts of different topics. But they're all going to be focused on the same sort of thing. How can you make your life the best experience possible? So peace out, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.